You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Hey, man,
So
got it.
We got it.
I don't know why.
So let me try to.
That was so hard.
I'm going to share this to my wall. So now it's posting to my wall. So hopefully that will cure any problems that we got going on. But dude, okay. So we figured it out finally. I don't know why that was such an issue for Facebook this morning, but
I don't know, man. When you're like, hey, do you know how to do this? I'm like, man, I've done this a million times, so I don't know why it didn't work today.
I don't know. So Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. So
the Facebook gods today are not working in our favor.
They surely are not. They're not happy with us today. So, but no, dude, this is going to be incredible. I appreciate you with this opportunity today, Jesse. Guys, I know that we're broadcasting on Jesse's wall. I'm sharing this on my wall as well. So hopefully that actually worked. But I haven't even refreshed my browser to see if that actually worked on my laptop. Let me just kind of see if that's actually happening. Yeah, it is. It's broadcasting on my wall as well. So
nice.
Hopefully people will know to jump on there and all that kind of good stuff. But guys, I had the opportunity to work with Jesse a couple years back. This is when I was still in the fitness industry and kind of tapping into the online space. And he helped me really build. I think you're the one who changed my mindset on Facebook, where it was like, dude, don't use it as social media anymore. Use it as business media. And I'm pretty sure that came from you. But I'm seeing just so much of what you're doing, man, and the testimonials that you're getting from people. And so I'm really excited about having this conversation with you. But before we dive into all that, do you mind just kind of sharing who you are and why, people should listen to you, my man?
Yeah. So, obviously we met, a few years ago, but prior to me doing what I'm doing now, I was a trainer for 21 years, owned my own training facilities for 12, and sold those in 2018. And I kind of found myself, I actually sold them, moved to Southern California with my wife and kids from Washington State, and literally was working for another company at the time doing some coaching. My contract happened to run out within about 6 months of moving to California. And I had the opportunity to either continue working for the company in a different place than original, or it was like, hey, you can go coach on your own. Now, if you've been an entrepreneur for any length of time, you will recognize right away that you do not like working for other people. I did not like doing that. However, I love the company. I love the purpose behind it. But being an entrepreneur, I always felt like you kind of have the creativity to do whatever you want. That's what I really love about being an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And, God gives us all these gifts, right? Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I wasn't using these gifts that he had given me. And my gift to people has always been about transformation, right? So whether it was coaching people in the health and fitness space, like I did for so many years, I got into coaching men in a program called Wake Up Warrior. And I was really able to just help lead men in transformation. And as I got farther along in that, I ran a program called Certified Trainer in there, and just helped equip guys with the skills to be able to take the curriculum and put it into their own business. And then once that contract ran out, I was like, hey, I think I want to do this, but I want to do it on my own terms, in my own way. And I want to combine what I know in the fitness industry, and not only that, what I've learned in the business side of the fitness industry with the things that I had learned in this program, and really combine them together into a more holistic model. And so back in 2018, I think it was like December, I headed out on my own to start Habit-Based Lifestyle. And I really looked back and said, okay, what are the things that have helped me become successful, not only in business and life? And it came down to habits. I was a big athlete growing up, played college football, won the Golden Gloves in boxing. And if I really look back, the things that made me successful was my habits. And so Habit-Based Lifestyle was not just something I made up, it was something that I lived for so long, right? So I started out coaching, and back in 2018, I had no clients. I was starting over, complete new industry, and so I had to figure out how to get clients. And I took the skills that I had in my fitness business, applied them to what I needed to do in coaching, which is get clients. And I went out and started doing organic marketing, right? This is what I knew. I knew it worked. And so that was the thing that really launched me into, creating my own business, getting clients, things like that. I immediately, probably got like 8 to 10 clients. Then I'm like, hey, let me go run Facebook ads. Let me write a book. Let me launch a podcast. And all of this was done in the span of about, 60 to 90 days. It's like, hey, I needed a book to be, for people to be like, okay, Jesse's credible if he has a book. So I wrote a book called Man in the Mirror. And then I launched a podcast called Habit-Based Lifestyle, and thinking, hey, if I have a podcast, then people will take me serious. And then, of course, running Facebook ads. Now, here was the thing, man. I had spent about 6 months goes by. I'd spent about $60,000 on ads, hiring coaches, telling me I need to write a book, I need to launch a podcast. And I looked back and I'm like, okay, what do I have to account for the $60,000? What's my ROI? I looked back and it was about $1,000. No one ever signed up with me because of my podcast, because of a book, because I was running ads. They signed up with me because I was marketing organically on social media, right? And so I sat there and was like, all right, I'm firing everybody that works for me, and I'm just going to focus on this one thing. And so I fired everybody, focused on the one thing, and just went the next 6 months, made about $250,000. And was like, wow, this works, right? So I hired a couple coaches that helped me with my organic marketing. I started to recognize that everybody I hired was like missing one or two things, right? They had a lot of good ideas, but what I saw was this inconsistency in systems, right? And inside the training space, what made me really successful was that I had a training system, and I made everybody on my team follow this system. And I was like, look, if you're not going to follow this system, I appreciate you, and I wish you the best of luck, but you're just not going to work here. Kind of like having a football team and saying, look, this is the offense and defense we're going to run. Even if you're the best athlete, I don't care, because if you don't run this offense and defense the way that I want it run, you're not playing on my team. And so I made a hard line in that. And so I kind of did the same thing in organic marketing. As I said, man, what has really made me successful in doing this? And it came down to 4 things. Okay. And these 4 things have, no matter the algorithm, no matter what platform you're on, they're always going to be the same. Number 1, are your ideal clients on your platform? Do you understand who your ideal client is? Now, most people will say yes, but here's the thing is they don't know how to actually find them. Okay. And so what I started to recognize are like, where are my ideal clients hanging out? Because it's one thing to know who your ideal client is. It's another thing to find them and actually get them onto your content, onto your profile. Okay. Number 2 is posting content. Now, one of the things that you originally said is like, look, posting content is not marketing. Okay. So posting content is kind of like taking your first step. Okay. So is posting content marketing? It is, but if you don't post it the right way or the right type of content, it's not. But one thing that I will say about content is like, just posting content is a good start, but it's kind of like, you know, in a mile race, it's kind of like taking the first 10 steps. Okay. So it's getting you out of the place you're at. It's better than not posting, but there's so many different types of content to post. It's like, which one do I post? The one that you are the most consistent with. So I'm going to tell you a secret. Okay. Watch this. So, excuse me. People will buy from you because of your consistency more than any one type of piece of content. Okay. So Sean's amazing at reels. You know, I might be amazing at live videos. I might be amazing at, you know, writing copy, but like at the end of the day, what people buy is your consistency. That's how they gain know, like, and trust with you. And so if you're inconsistent, there's no way for people to build that know, like, and trust with you, right? And so above everything else, you know, is there any one type of content that works better than others? I mean, yeah, there is, but at the end of the day, stop focusing on that as much as saying, like, listen, just show up consistently every single day. So content is number 2. Go ahead, man. If you got,
I want to hang out there for a little bit because this ties back to your habits. Like there's so many things I want to deep dive into this, and I know we have a limited time, so we're not going to be able to deep dive in everything. But between the fitness and business, like there's so many parallels about how do you sustain results in the gym. Well, you got to show up daily, you got to show up consistently, right? Like you got to build the habits there. And you know, your first day in the gym, you may not know exactly what you're doing, right? But just showing up is half the battle, right? Like that's
right.
that's the beginning of it. So I love this parallel that we can already take within your content now, where, hey, you may not know the best strategy yet. You might not know what your voice is yet, right? You may not know if you're a good writer, or people are going to connect with you through video, or people are going to connect with you with like your little avatar guy or whatever, right? Like, how are people going to connect with you? Well, you don't know until you start testing stuff by putting it out there. So it's just like, again, that parallel with, you know, showing up to the gym. And that's what I just love fitness and business, like that parallel together.
It's such a good, you know, like you said, parallel. But here's what I'll say. The hardest part of going to the gym is walking in the door, right? The hardest part of posting content a lot of times is just hitting send, you know, and just, it's like you're putting yourself out there, right? And that's what people tend to hold themselves back from, right? And it's like, hey, what are people going to think of me when I walk in this gym? Because I haven't been in here for years. And then you're like, what are people going to think of me when I post this piece of content? But you know what? Here's the one thing I want you to know. No one cares that you haven't been in the gym in 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, 10 years, just like no one cares what you post.
Come on, man. I love that. And a lot of times too, like me and Josh have had this conversation, you know, a lot of times we kind of suffer from that imposter syndrome. What are people going to think about me? Am I good enough? This and that. Like we're putting so much of pressure on us to be good enough. We're taking our mindset off the fact that I'm here to serve others. And I think if we kind of take the eyeballs off of us and say, you know what, I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. So let me go ahead and post this content. Let me go ahead and add value to somebody else's life. Let me go ahead and serve them through this. Then that takes the focus off of you. And so then you can kind of get over that hurdle of, well, who cares what other people think? I'm here to serve my fellow man. I'm here to help this person out over here. And I'm not here to show off. I'm not here to build an ego, to stroke my own pride or ego or anything like that, right? And so I think if you could really tie that in, like tie the servant heart to your content, then that's going to enable you to put out to first and foremost get the content out there, but also to even put out better content for your viewers.
Yeah, and I think this, man, is everything that we struggle with is going to come up as soon as we start putting ourselves out there. So, you know, having that spirit of fear, intimidation, you know, comparison, all those things. But here's the thing that you'll find is go to these guys that have been, you know, posting content for forever. Like I'll use a guy like Alex Hormozy because everybody knows him, but like if you hear him, he'll say the same thing. If you hear a lot of these other gurus, it's like, hey man, I stopped caring about, I stopped making it about me and I started making it about somebody else. Right. And so a lot of times we got to get out of the me. Like, why do you care so much about what people think by you putting stuff out there? Right. If you just think of it this way, everything that you're putting out there is a test to see what works, what doesn't work, what your audience, is finding value in, what they're not finding value in, right? And so, like, what if your content was just a way to track your own progress on, like, hey, can you look back, a year from now and be like, dude, Sean, last year, you weren't doing any videos, any reels. Now, dude, you got 166,000 followers, but like, are you a different person?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. But like, if you didn't track your progress, if you didn't suck for a period of time and embrace that, you would have never had the opportunity to get better. Now, here's the thing that most people screw up on is they're not willing to suck long enough to actually see the growth. And so when I look back at Sean a year ago and I look at Sean today, dude, this guy is not even the same guy. Okay. But if I wouldn't have been willing to suck for a period of time, I would have never have seen that growth in myself. And I would have never been able to reach all the people that I'm spreading my gospel to and all these other things. Right. And so your true purpose is not being able to be put out there because you're unwilling to suck for a period of time.
Amen.
And I think of you, man, like you have such a cool story. I've known you for, man, like 3 years. It's like there was Sean before God and then there's Sean after God, right? There's Sean before Jesus. There's Sean after he met him. But like, if I wouldn't have put those on video, I could never see the difference of those. So your growth is now tracked, man. That's what's so cool about social media is your own growth is actually now tracked, and you can look back and say, man, am I growing or am I shrinking?
That's key, man, because not too long ago, I don't know if you saw this post, but you know how Facebook will do those little memory posts that'll pop up. And it brought up a memory of mine on the wall, and I read it, and I was so cringy. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was the hill that I would die on, right? Like that's so cringeworthy. Like I could not believe I posted that, and that was my mindset. Like that's who I was in my entire being. That's who I was in my deepest core when I made that post. And I could just see the ego just coming out of it and the pride and just everything else. And just, look what I'm doing was really the kind of post it was. And I was just like, man, like I am so happy for growth. I am so happy for the transformation through Jesus Christ. I mean, you talk about God gives us gifts. And I love that you used the word transformation. That is your gift to transform people, whether that was with fitness or now it's within their business or even, becoming a better individual. Because I tell you, I invested in your book, right? And then that helped me that started my journey towards being a better man and being a better business person. But it was ultimately like, that was kind of the gateway to like really seeing, Jesus Christ and who he was and, leading me down that spiritual path. Right. But I really love the transformation coach, right? I really love that message. And I think if we can almost tie that into what we're doing, I don't care what industry you're in, if you could kind of adapt that we're here to transform people's lives, taking them from one place of wherever they're at and helping them become better, then I think that's really what a coach is here to do. Like that's really what servitude is all about. And my pathway is obviously through the scripture and then, just helping them just to understand that you do not have to be alone because that's where I was for so long in business, right? Like I thought the world was out to get me and I resented people and, they don't understand me. They don't get me, and I have to do this all alone. And then I found out that, the first thing God said about being alone is it is not good for man to be alone. right? And so my message today for people is you do not have to do business alone. You're not alone. It's not good for you to be alone. So if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling hopeless and lost in those areas, like, let's find you a tribe. Let's find you some brothers that can help build you up. And wherever that is, faith, fitness, finances, or family, right?
Here,
Like whatever that.
here's something that that we have to recognize, right? Is whether you believe in God or don't, and maybe you're listening to this and you're like, hey, these guys are just preaching to me. Like, here's what I'll say: the enemy wants you to feel alone. The enemy wants to isolate you because he knows once he's done that, then he can, impose his will on you, right?
Come on.
And it's usually, it's usually kind of like a dart in the side. Is you don't feel it. You feel it. You're like, oh man. But after a while, he does his work on you so much to where it's like you kind of like bleed everything out. You're still walking in flesh. You're still doing these things, but you've basically, built yourself into this prison. And so understanding that, like, this is the exact thing that the enemy wants, right? We have to combat that. The first way we combat that is we can be there for somebody else and say, hey, Sean, like, hey man, like, I'm a guy that just wants to get to know you, right? And I think of a guy who came into my program like a month ago. He shows up on a call and literally, like, it's the only time I've ever got on a call with someone where I thought if they didn't join my program, they might commit suicide.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt that kind of darkness over him, and I'm getting, emotional about it because I saw this in him. I'm like, if this guy doesn't get into my program and get around some guys, he's going to, there's something that's going to happen. Okay. And we talked about, his history, and we started off the call. I just simply was like, hey man, can I pray for you?
Come on.
And for the first like 5 minutes, here I am. I'm supposed to like close this guy. I'm on a sales call, and all of a sudden the Holy Spirit shows up and says, like, hey, this isn't about selling. This is about you praying for this guy, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to pray for this guy, he's not going to get into your program. And so first thing we did is I prayed for him. I talked to him about his past. I talked to him about his dad. And I said, hey man, you know that you have a father that loves you more than anything, will never let you down, and will never leave you. And, so I talked to him for a little bit, and then we ended up saying, I'm like, look, I could sit here and tell you about how great my program, sell you into it. But I was like, dude, if you don't do this for you, like, you're going to miss out on what God has in store for you. Why don't you join me and a group of other guys, and let's do this. And so within 2 to 3 weeks, he gets into our group. He starts exercising. He starts taking care of himself. And within 3 weeks, he lost 15 pounds. He had his best month ever in business, and he started halfway through the month. And he's a completely different guy. Like, you get on a call with him now, you see clarity. He's like, my neighbors are noticing. People are in my office are seeing me. They're asking me what I'm doing. And the whole thing is like, if I would have just showed up as a salesperson on the call and not the person that was looking to transform someone's life, that would have never happened.
Dude, I love that. And that ties right into kind of the 3 C's of business that I'm always preaching about. Like, yeah, we're here to create. And so if we are a coach, if we're creating a business, or if we are an entrepreneur at heart and we're trying to do that, then there's your creativeness, right? Like, you're tapping into your creative spirit. But then the other 2 C's is connection and contribution. And you were able to connect through contribution. You were able to contribute to this individual before they were even inside of your program, which I think is just powerful. And so now just think of what he in turn is going to do for other people now that he's sharing his story and people are coming to him and seeing the differences. Like, how many more lives is he going to impact because of that, because of your obedience to pray over that man? Right? Like, and how many sales professionals do that? How many times do we say, hey, do you mind if I pray for you right now? Like, because I'm sure in the back of your mind, it's like, man, should I be doing this, right? But your obedience to just heed to that call and listen to the Holy Spirit lead you with that. That again is not just obedience to the Lord, but it's come from that servant heart. I'm going to serve this person right here, right where he's at. I'm going to give him exactly what he needs right now. And I think if we all do that, whether that's on a sales call or that's through our content or that's through whatever, I don't care if we're walking down the street and we just see somebody that, just kind of looks down and out, and we could just say, hey, can I pray over you today? It looks like, hey, can I feed you today? Like, can I do something for you? Right? Like if we just embrace that and live that in our day-to-day lives, like that's what we're called to be. So
here's the thing that I see, man, is if we're so focused on business, we miss out on the opportunity to encounter somebody else, right? And so I could have very easily been focused on business, manipulated the conversation, and just focused on selling the guy. But the first thing, that I had to listen to was I had to listen to the Holy Spirit saying, like, look, this guy's hurting. He's in pain. How can I serve him? It's no longer about the sale, right? It's about the transformation. And I don't want to sell people into my program. I want people to come into my program because they know that they're going to transform not only their business, but their entire life.
Amen.
And we don't even promote the life stuff until they get in, man. It's on the front end. It's like, hey, we'll teach you how to make more money, teach you how to do these things. But really, our goal is to transform somebody's mind, transform their heart, and transform their whole life so that it affects everything else in their life.
I love that, man. It's exactly how Jesus worked, right? Like you give them what they need and then send them on their way with what, or you give them what they want.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. So you give them what they want, what they're coming to you for in the first place, and then you provide them with what they need as they're moving forward. So I love that, man. Well, I didn't want to, like, we kind of deep dove into a lot of stuff, but you mentioned that there's 4 things. And so the first thing was, you need to be where your client is. We kind of touched on that. And obviously Facebook, like, can you just talk about that real quick? Because I know that you leverage Facebook, and I'm a firm believer that all your clients on Facebook. Can you just tell us why Facebook? Why did you choose Facebook as the platform to find all your clients and to even help your clients find their clients?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you why I stuck on Facebook, because I was spraying and praying, is what I call it, on all the platforms. So like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm like, why would I expect results if I'm just going to divide things up into 33%? Okay. So if I'm 33% on LinkedIn, if I'm 33% on Instagram, if I'm 33% on Facebook, why would I expect to get 100% of results off any one platform? Okay. And so let's use the gym analogy. Okay. If I'm doing 33% CrossFit, 33% HIIT training, 33% bodybuilding, what type of results would I expect to get across the board? What if I just focused on one platform?
Come on, man.
And so I went and said, look, I'm just going to focus 90% of my time on Facebook, and then I'll spend 10% of my time on Instagram. So I did that, and then I started seeing the results of it. Now, once I started seeing the results of it, I was like, okay, I wonder if I could apply these same results or these same, things that I'm doing here on another platform and get similar results. And so we started to, and that started to help me recognize. But where I've still consistently seen the best results, bar none, since 2016. So most people have just started figuring out organic marketing probably around 2020, 2021, even now today. I've been doing this since 2016. Facebook has consistently shown me the best results. It doesn't mean that that's the only place. It's just where I've seen it. And I will say this, I've seen people with large followings on Instagram come over with no followings and get better results as far as making money on Facebook with way less. And so consistently, that's just where I've seen people make more money.
I love it. I love it. And I'm a firm believer of that too. Like when I double down on Facebook, because I started on TikTok,
Yeah.
with my reels, and I grew quite an audience, but it was really hard to connect with people on TikTok, right? And I think Facebook just gives you so many more availability to really connect and deep dive and form and nurture those relationships, where some of the other platforms kind of miss that, right?
Let's look at it a couple ways. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on TikTok, and you
Mm-hmm.
follow someone, it doesn't guarantee they follow you. If you're on Instagram, you can follow someone, it doesn't guarantee they follow you back. On Facebook, you friend request someone, they friend request you back. Now all of a sudden there's a connection. Okay. And so that is the only platform that you can do that on, where if you say, hey, add me as a friend, they add you, you're now connected, which is a completely different thing than anywhere else. I'll give you another thing. Facebook has business page, it has a group, it has your profile, and it has Facebook ads. So it literally has 4 platforms in one. That's not even talking about your stories, which is 5. So let's just say Facebook has 5 platforms in one. Everybody else has 2. Mine, LinkedIn now is a little bit, has the groups, but it still doesn't have the 5 platforms like Facebook does. So that is, you might think hey, that's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal because you have 5 different ways that you can potentially get access to a client.
Amen. Yep. No, I love that. And those are the very specific reasons why I chose, Facebook has just been really good to me for sure. So yeah, let's move on then, man. I think that you gave people some awesome golden nuggets there. And I would invite you guys, don't skip over this. Don't just watch this video right here on the live. If you guys are live right now, please hashtag live. If you catch this on a replay, please hashtag replay. But watch this again and again, because Jesse is really revealing a lot of deep, dark secrets here, guys, that if you were to take this and implement it, you could literally launch your business. So you talked about, okay, be where your ideal client is at. We're talking about Facebook here. Posting content. And the main message there is get consistent with your content, right? Don't be scared to post the content. Don't be scared of what people think about you. But let's get busy. Let's get out there, and we'll get better with our content. We'll get better as we go.
Embrace the suck with your content, right? And really, your content should be about testing, right? It's about testing what works, what doesn't. It's about testing everything that you're doing. And it's also to be able to look back, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and be like, wow, man, I used to not be able to string 2 words together. Now, I remember one of my mentors saying back in 2014, 15, he's like, man, you sound like a drunk Canadian on your videos. And I remember thinking dude, that's pretty messed up. But out of that, I ended up doing 130 days of videos straight. And he came back and he's like, man, what's cool is I just watched you completely transform how you communicate just in the last 130 days. And I can't call you a drunk Canadian anymore. And so I was able to get out of my head and just focus on, okay, I'm just going to focus on the next video. I'm just going to focus on what I got to do today. I'm not going to get caught up in however many I got to do going forward.
I love that statement. It's that consistency, and you do get better. I love that. So let's move forward, man. You said there's 4 things.
So there's engagement. Okay. So here's what I want you to understand. What people do a lot of times is they go to my page and they're like, I'm just going to copy whatever Jesse's doing. And I'll say, okay, good. Do that. And you might get some more engagement. You might even get a couple clients out of it. But here's what's going to mess up, man. Number 1, the content you're posting that most people are posting is not even engagement worthy. Okay. You have to actually train your audience and tell them exactly how you want them to engage. Okay. And it's sort of like Simon Says. Okay. Simon, does Simon give you one command or does he give you like 4? Okay. Because here's what a lot of people will do is they'll realize, oh, I need to get my people to engage. So they'll say something like this: hey, like, comment, subscribe, do this. So it's like, you just gave me 4 commands and one. Like, what do you want me to do? Okay. Versus saying, hey, go right now, #live if you're watching this live. That's one command. That's one thing that they can do. Or, hey, if you guys are watching this live, give me some likes right now and let me know you're here, right? So I've been very specific. So when it comes to engagement on our content, we have to tell you and train you exactly how you engage. Okay, so if you're doing a video, you're like, hey guys, if you want to find out more about my organic marketing and this system that we teach that helps you produce an extra 10 to 30K a month, okay, every single month, just comment organic and I will personally reach out to you and then we can get on a call and see if this is the right thing for you. Now, I gave you one very specific thing to do, a call to action to get you to do what I want you to do, right? And if you don't tell people exactly what you want them to do, they'll never do it. Okay, here's the big thing, man, is everybody's doing now. Hey, DM me. Like, bro, ain't nobody going to DM you. I'm sorry. But nobody is going to just DM you and slide into your DMs and be like, oh my gosh, please.
Oh, the scammers will DM you though.
But I'm saying no one will watch your content very rarely unless it's amazing content. No one will just sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to go DM him because he said to, right? It's like, hey, man, do this specific thing and then let's have a conversation. Okay, so let's roll back to content. Is your content actually engagement worthy? Are you telling people exactly what you want them to do? Because I know that pretty much everybody that I know does not make their content engagement worthy. They actually make it more confusing. Okay, so when you're posting content, ask yourself like, hey, what do I want someone to do with this? Do I want them to comment? Do I want them to like? Do I want them to heart? And give them the command so you make it really easy. Now, the other thing is this: the number one way to get your audience to engage with you is to ask questions. Okay, it's the easiest way. Like, let's be honest, man. If I just asked you a basic question like, hey, Sean, what's your favorite Bible verse? I give you the opportunity to engage with me, right? That's this most simplest way to do it. Now, what most people make confusing is this. If I said, hey, what is your favorite Bible verse? You immediately will probably tell me. But if I say, hey, Sean, what is your favorite Bible verse and why does it matter? All of a sudden, you would go from a couple hundred comments to like 1. Why? Is because you made it hard for me to engage because you asked 2 questions instead of 1.
That's so good.
So I'm not teaching you guys anything. Like, people pay me $8, $10, $15,000 to learn this stuff. Here's what I know. If you're not paying me, you're probably not going to go do it. And you won't do it consistently. You might do it once or twice, but what I want you to know is like everything that I'm teaching you right now is what I teach people in my paid program. But most people that don't pay won't play.
That's it.
Okay, they just won't do it. And if you look at Alex Hormozy, he's like, hey man, here, I'm gonna give you everything I got, because he knows that if people do not pay, they're not gonna do the work, even if you give them everything. Here's the golden key. All you got to do is take it and go unlock it. Now, some people will, but I'm here to help people, man. So like, I'm going to tell you exactly what we do. So engagement is key, because if you just post content and you don't see people engaging, it's probably because your content is not engagement worthy.
Come on, man.
Okay. And so we have to change that. And we also have to train people. Let me train you on how to engage with me. Okay.
That's really interesting too, because when you have trained, I love that you say we have to train our audience how to engage, right? Like I have been doing that since December. Now I'm not a big football fan by any means. Like I'll watch it, but I was just like, well, let me just throw out a post. And so yesterday I was like, who won? I put the little football emoji. Dude, I got like 6 comments on it. Why? Because my audience is not there for sports. Like that's not who my audience is, right? I have trained them that we are here to share the Bible. We're here to talk about personal development. We're here to talk about business. And so when I post things like that they can engage with, they are all over it. However, when I kind of go out of the box, it's kind of like, So yeah, I still play with some of those things and test it. Where it's like, yeah, I saw that one bomb, right? And sometimes we're going to make content that bombs.
And you could go
But
back and say, hey, what do you do on Sundays? Go to
Mhm,
church, watch football, or something
mhm,
else.
mhm,
Now you're getting your audience to, oh yeah, no, I go to church, man. So it's
yeah,
like you need to know you need to know your ideal clients. Like my clients
mhm,
are conservative for the most part. My clients are health professionals or coaches. My clients, are very focused on, things like church, sports, kind of more of a conservative base.
mhm.
It doesn't mean everybody, but a
Right.
lot of people, right? And so knowing my audience ultimately helps me decide what content's going to work or not
Yeah.
work. Now, dude, you tested it. You're like, hey, this didn't work. I don't think I'm going to do this again, but next time I'm going to try this. And so
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
not a bomb, right? It's like, no, I just learned
It's feedback.
this about, and I got feedback, and now I'm going to
Mhm,
change it to this. And so here's what I'll tell you. It doesn't matter what you post if you just are like, look, man, everything's a test.
mhm.
Okay. I know this didn't
100%.
work. There's plenty of times where I was like, oh, dude, this is the best thing I've ever posted in my life. And then all of a sudden I got like 0 comments. And then there's other times where it's like, I'm just going to throw this out there. And all of a sudden it blew up. What was the difference? I don't know, man. I just,
He-
I had a higher expectation and it did
yeah,
worse. I had a lower expectation, it did better.
yeah. And you never really know what is going to hit. Like the video that took me viral, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't intend that I was going to create a viral video, right? Sometimes it's just a right message from a right audience, and that they just happen to be all on the platform at the same time, and it just resonates with them, right? And sometimes it's just God's handiwork right in there. God just says, "I'm going to bless this," right? So, but again, it all falls back on being consistent, test things, and take the feedback. And don't beat yourself up. By all means, don't beat yourself up over a piece of content that doesn't quote unquote do well. Just dust yourself off and say, okay, I'm learned from that, and so we're going to keep going on strong, right?
One thing
So,
I do want to point out is this. Every comment is good.
mm. Come
Okay.
on with that.
It helps your algorithm. So even if somebody doesn't remember this, is like not everybody is going to believe what you believe. Not everybody is going to have the same experience as you. And so even
Mm-hmm.
if a lot of the people that I might work with are conservative, somebody else jumps on there with a different belief. The natural thing is want to go attack them for what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've probably done that too many times. And I've had to step myself back and say, listen, man, this person is taking their time out of their day to comment on my stuff. Like, why should I attack them? Why should I attack what they believe? And is that really going to change their beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I just have a discussion like, hey man, thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate it. And it's so cool that we can have so many different beliefs, values, and other things. And here's what I'll say. If you want to blow up a post, talk about religion, talk about politics, or talk about race or kind of current issues in the world, that will blow up things more than any, but it will also bring on an onslaught of different values and things like that. And I want people to understand that it's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But like my biggest thing is like, I'm not here to change people's beliefs on Facebook. I'm here to help people transform their life. And
I love
if
that.
the better that I can show up, the better that I can be there for other people, that's going to do it. And I remember a girl a couple of years ago saying like, hey, because you spoke out about this, it actually made me start questioning some of the things that I believed. But I could tell you that out of like that one time that person said that, you know, very few other people will do that. But if you're consistent with your message, if you're consistent with what you believe, people will listen more to that than if you're just kind of sporadically throwing stuff out there.
I agree with that. And I've had that conversation, many times because I do work with primarily the Christian entrepreneur, right? And they want to know how they can share the gospel, within their content, but then they get the backlash, right? And I said, if this is a hill that you're going to die on, then welcome to backlash. Like we are going to get it. Like, and by the way, a bad comment is not persecution. Like there's far worse things that can happen in a bad comment in the comments, right? But it's more about, okay, just know what hill that you're willing to die for or die on, and also like develop some thick skin. Like if you're going to polarize your audience, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're building our tribe over here, and on the other side, we're having to dodge the arrows and the darts, so to speak. You're going to have to develop some thick skin. But I love what you said. Like we can still show kindness. We can still show civil discord, and I will do that. Like I will embrace people who have a different opinion or different value or moral ethic, if you will, in the comments, as long as it's civil. If it is civil discourse, absolutely, we can go back and forth with it. If the rudeness, the derogatory comments, the attacks, like that stuff, I won't put up with, and they'll, I'll very quickly block that person without any second thought to it. But just know that if you are going to go polarizing your audience, which you don't have to, right? Like you don't have to polarize your audience, but if you decide to go that route, just know that you're going to have to develop some thick skin, and people are going to be nasty, they're going to be ugly, and you got to be okay with that versus just going on the attack and try to attack them back is what I would say.
And I will say this, close to 3 years ago, I was pretty polarizing in some of my views on things. And I remember kind of sitting there in prayer time and saying like, okay, is this helping people, or is this like, essentially hurting people? And at the end of the day, that wasn't really like the message I wanted to send at the end of the day, right? And so I had to decide like, hey, am I doing this because I want to be popular, or am I doing this because I want to actually help people, right? And I got away from transformation, and I had to come back to that. And I think it's important that yes, we can still have our views, we can have some of these other things, but like it's okay that people don't agree with everything that we say, right? If your only viewers for you, man, are already Christians, already people that agree with you, like how are you even like spreading the gospel or sharing it? You're not, right?
That's
and
right.
So a lot of times it's the people that are, kind of on the edge, or maybe they're like, back when I first, got saved, was like I had a business owner that was making a lot of money, but he gave it all back to Christ. And I was like, wow, here's someone who's actually successful that I can look up to, and I started listening, right? But if that guy wouldn't have been talking about that, I would have never, got to where I am today. And so we have to also look at, hey, we aren't just speaking to the people who agree with us. Sometimes it's about still putting a message out there and speaking to people who may not agree, so that way we can have a deeper conversation. And we live in a day and age where nobody talks anymore and has dialogue on disagreements. We all just start, kind of like fighting with each other, right? We don't actually get into other people's worlds and say, okay, Sean, like, why do you believe this? Like, what makes you believe this way? Right? Or you're like, hey, Jesse, like, what makes you believe this way? because I know this, that a lot of people who don't believe in God have never had an encounter with him. So why would they believe in it, right? When people hear this guy Jesus or the Holy Spirit, they're like, hey man, I don't believe in all that. And I'm like, oh man, I totally understand. I bet you've never had an encounter with him like I have.
So
and so because if they did, they would probably change their beliefs, right? And so why would I sit there and talk bad about that, or like, dude, why don't you believe in what I believe, when they've never had that same encounter?
Dude, that's on point. 100%. I love that. And dude, we could go another hour just on that topic alone, right? But I do want to move this forward because so we talked about, being where your client is, being on the ideal platform. And part of that is knowing who you're serving, right? Like knowing exactly who your avatar is. Posting the content, like let's stay consistent with that. Let's engage with them. And one of the top tricks that we learned here, guys, is ask questions, and keep it simple. Like ask simple questions that invite people to engage on your platform which then I guess leads us into number 4. What is that on your list, my man?
Yeah. So number 4 is this. It's going to be communication and messaging. Okay. The number one skill that we need today, 2 skills. Number 1, you need to learn how to market. Number 2, you need to learn how to sell. Okay. But here's the thing is today, nobody sells over the phone anymore. Everybody sells in DMs and they sell on text. So there is a skill that 99% of people do not have, which is selling in DMs, selling in text, and communicating that way. Nobody calls each other anymore. Very few people do that. So this skill will put you miles ahead of everywhere else. And so we've developed a sales process and system that starts there and progresses into, a call or something like that. And there's this number 1 skill you have is the difference between somebody, I will say this, the average business that's making 20 to 30K a month is missing out on 10 to 15K a month by not knowing how to do this. Okay. And where the rubber meets the road is like, how well can I take people from my content on social media, get them into a sales conversation, and then get them closed? And there's a skill that you have to develop today, because the old days is like, hey, once I got your number, I just call you. But that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
It used to work, but now we have to learn how to communicate in a strategic way that doesn't come across like everybody else. And so here's what I'll give you an example. So number 1, you got all these gurus and people with 100,000 followers, 200,000 followers, 300,000 followers. They just show up in your DMs, and it's always about them and about what they can offer you. Here's the number 1 thing that I'm going to tell you. It's not about me. It's not about Sean. It's about you and how I can help serve you. And if you lead from that place, you'll already be 75% of the way ahead of everybody else. But if you read DMs nowadays, it's always about the person. Like, hey, dude, I have, I can hook you up with 100,000 followers in like 5 minutes, But it's like, dude, how do you even know I want that? Like, did you ask me? Like, versus saying like, hey, Sean, like, I see that you work with Christian businessmen, man. That's such a cool thing. Tell me what got you started in that. I have an actual genuine conversation with you versus leading with, even if I can help you grow your audience by 100,000, if I lead with that, I've now made it about me. And in today's day and age, if you make selling about you and not about the person, you can't ever tie them together. And so then it just becomes, kind of like the car salesman, right? Is just making it about the next sale. So we have to shift the mindset. And I want everybody watching this to start recognizing this, is people in their DMs are always reaching out to them. It's like, hey, look what I have to offer. Look what I do. Make it about the person you're talking to. Hey, tell me what got you started in this. Tell me about this, because that gets you to want to start talking to me and opening up, right? Which now we can have a real conversation. But like, it's kind of like being at a bar, man, and like sitting by the door, and everybody who walks in, you're like, hey, you want to sleep with me, right? 1 out of 100 might do it. But if everybody walked by and I said, hey, man, my name's Jesse. It's great to meet you. Like, hey, what got you started? What got you to come into the bar tonight? Or what got you started here? Now, all of a sudden, that 100 people turns into 75 conversations. Why? Because I made it about them and I didn't make it about me. And so there's a new skill set that you have to develop on social media today, that if you don't understand how to do this, like, you're going to be way left behind.
Dude, that is so good. But it all just comes back to the very first of it, which is having the servant heart, right? We have to keep in mind it is about them, because we see this all the time. And so we want to pitch, how good our product is, how good our service is, how good we are at, delivering X, Y, and Z. But if the person can't even relate that they need that product or service in the first place, well, they're just tuning you right out. And now you're just spamming them into DMs.
Let me say this, man. If I don't know what you want, I can't take you there.
There it is.
Okay, so the best analogy I can give you is the taxi cab. Nobody gets into a taxi cab, or you get into a taxi cab, what's the first thing they ask you?
Where to?
Where do you want to go, right? They don't say, hey, I'm going to go take you to the airport. I'm going to go take you to here, and then I'm going to take you to IHOP, because you're like, dude, I don't need to go to any of those places. I just want to go here. But yet that's what so many people do in DMs is they're going, well, I'm going to take you here. I'm going to take you here, and I'm going to take you here. And you're like, dude, leave me alone. I want nothing to do with you, right? And so if you don't know what people want, you can't take them to where they want to go, which means there's a huge disconnection, which means, hey, we're just playing a numbers game, right? You message 1,000, you might get one. Okay. If you don't want to play numbers and you want to play relationships, then start leading with, hey, tell me about you. Tell me about where you want to go. Tell me about what you got going on, right? The other thing I'll say is this. Marketing today is not about information or education. Okay. Even content today is not about information or education. It's about results. Are you leading with results, or are you leading with education and information? We can go to ChatGPT and get all the education and information we want.
Exactly.
Right. Or we can have a results-based conversation. That's what I'm about.
I love that. Now, let me ask you this, because, a lot of people might be the aspiring online coach. Maybe they're brand new. Maybe they don't have a whole lot of results or testimonials yet, right? What would you advise to someone like that who's just getting started?
Let me say this. Every person that wants to be a coach, every person that wants to, help transform people, they have their own results, okay? Which is the whole reason why they want to do what they do, okay? And so if you don't have other people's results, talk about your results. Hey, here's how I was able to start my own coaching business. Okay. Because here's the thing, man, if you didn't have the transformation that you've had in your own walk, you wouldn't be leading others.
That's right.
So we only want to lead in what we've been transformed in ourselves.
Thank you for that. And Alex Hormozi, you've mentioned his name, quite a few times. That's exactly what he talks about. Is like a lot of the fake gurus are borrowing somebody else's content, and they're talking about other things that they have no experience in, right? And so they're trying to lead others down a path that they have themselves have not been. However, when we are in that position of, hey, I've done this, you're not speaking at them, you should do this. We're not preaching to people from the pulpit, but instead we're inviting them to say, come along with me. This is my experience. This is what I've done. And because I've had these results, I just want to share you how I did it and how you can do it too. And that's going to bring people a lot closer to you than someone who's just like, thou shalt do this because I said so, right?
Right.
Like
we got a guy on here. We got Tyler Campbell. So he's saying, hey, I disagree. I sold cars for 5 years. The majority of sales are done in person. but are bridged by a phone call. DMs are a dime a dozen. If you don't get to a phone call, you're wasting your time. So here's what I'll say, Tyler. Uh, old school sales, yes, but we have the ability today to take people from DMs into a conversation, whether that's on a phone call, whether that's Zoom, or whether that's in person. What I'm talking about is having that skill of being able to take someone from social media into a phone call, into Zoom, or into a meeting in person. It starts nowadays more there than it does on phone calls. And that's my experience. So you're speaking from your experience, which I respect, but saying I sold cars for 5 years, that means, you're not doing it anymore. And the new game of sales is taking people from social media to either a phone call or a Zoom call or into in person. My point is very few people answer their phones anymore compared to answering DMs or things like that. So you have to learn the skill today or you're missing out on a huge opportunity.
Amen. No, I agree with that 100%. And Jesse, I think this will give you an opportunity to share some of your client success stories because, dude, like, all right, I know that the main niche is like kind of the health niche because that's where you came from, but you're helping with people with some incredible, difficult niches, I would say, right?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people like in the software industry, the clothing industry, relationship industry, like the whole nine. Where you're helping them, like they're kind of just scraping by to having one girl, for example, I saw, was averaging $2,000 a month to within a month had her first $25,000 a month, working with you. So can you kind of share with us, maybe what some of these testimonials are and even kind of give us a glimpse into, you know, maybe not it was the tactics, maybe it was, but maybe it's the mindset, maybe it's the beliefs, maybe it's the transformation that they had to adapt for themselves. And the reason I want to get into this is because of this comment that we just got from Tyler, right? Like when we have a set of beliefs that are over here, that could hold us back from success that we want to see online. So taking kind of this message from Tyler, tying it into some of the testimonials, maybe you could kind of share with that, what that looks like.
Let me say this, like it's the same thing we talked about. It's like, hey, Tyler disagrees with me, but it's like, if I don't ever have, hey, let me explain this a little bit more, right? Dude, we're sending out between my team and the people that work with us, we're sending out 6,000 messages a week.
Wow.
So 20,000 messages a week, unless you're making 20,000 calls a week, like how can you say that what you're doing is better than what we're doing, right? Because we're testing everything that we do. So I'm not talking about theory, I'm talking about experience, and I'm not talking about my own, I'm talking about hundreds of other clients, right? So it may work better for one person doing it a certain way, but we're talking about a system that works for hundreds of people, not just one person. Does that make sense? So let me say this. The reason why our program works so well is because it's a system that people can follow and plug their business into. And it's very simple. Like I just walked you through the 4 steps we teach. Now, here's the one thing that I didn't say. You have to have what we call a results-based offer. What is a results-based offer? Most of you guys have heard about what's called a high-ticket offer, which typically is an offer that helps people achieve a specific result for the period of time they're going to work with you. And so what we found, like this person you're talking about, my client Chantel, she teaches people how to divorce their narcissistic spouse, which is like, hey, raise your hand if you want to divorce your narcissistic spouse. Pretty tough niche, right? But like what we did is said, okay, tell me what your offer is. She's like, well, I meet with people, for $175 one time, and then we meet again. And I'm like, okay, well, let me ask you this. How many sessions do they need to work with you to kind of do this? And she's like, well, they probably need to work with me for at least 4 to 6 months. And I said, okay, so why are you selling individual sessions when you know this person's going to be working with you for 6 months? Why not just commit them to the length of time, have a program that you can walk them through? You don't have to sit there and sell them after every session and feel like you got to do all these magical things, when you can just sit down and say, hey, listen, for us to work together, we're going to work together for 6 months. Here's the results you can expect to be at the end of that. Here's how much our program costs, and then let them decide what they want to do. But if you keep selling $175 sessions, well, guess what? They're all going to quit after about 3-4 weeks because they're not committed, just like you're not committed. And so what we did is said, okay, you got to change your offer. Here's your results-based offer. She changed her program, and she's like, that's exactly what I want to sell. She goes out, she has full confidence and alignment. All of a sudden, she's like, hey, I can't close anybody because I've never sold something at $5,000 or $6,000 before. What do I do? And I'm like, well, let's teach you how to sell. So we give them a framework. All of a sudden, she's like, hey, I closed my first, $6,000 program. All of a sudden, next day, hey, I closed another one. Next week, closing another one. All of a sudden, she's probably done over $55,000 in revenue in probably the last 70, 75 days.
That's incredible. That's incredible. But it wasn't just teaching her kind of the strategies and the systems, but it was also taking a deep look into her business model itself.
Yeah.
Right. And making some shifts and making some changes inside of that. So sometimes that's what we need to do too, is, I remember kind of in the fitness when I was running my gyms, the first time my beliefs were broken about stop selling, a package of 12 personal training sessions and start selling 3 to 5 months of personal training sessions. And that was a huge leap of faith for me to do. Like, here I am saying, well, I'm selling this for like $500, and now you want me to go out and sell something for $5,000, 7,500 in some cases. Like, that was a huge mindset shift for me, but it works, right? Like, you get the long-term commitment because it is about the results that the person is getting. You're not selling the packages. You're not selling the sessions. You're selling the results.
And remember, sessions are only worth so much money and so much commitment, right? When I'm like, hey, Sean, we work together for this length of time, this is kind of where you can expect to be. I'm now selling the result of what we're doing versus saying, hey, just call me whenever you feel like you need coaching. Like, you're going to be like, dude, I ain't doing that. Are you kidding me? Yep. So, your offer is where we start. The system of the marketing is what I went through today. And then you have the system of selling. Okay. And so we start with offer, the middle is your marketing, and then the end is selling. Okay. And that's really the whole system put together. Some people, they may not need help with the offer. They just need help with marketing. Other people, they need help with the whole business system. I'll give you an idea. So like, a lot of the people we work with, they're health professionals. So like chiropractors, we have a lot of people doing medical weight loss. We have, we've worked with mortgage, real estate. The thing that we found, the transaction cycle in that industry is 60 to 90 days, which means I meet you as a lead. I may not be able to close you for 60 to 90 days because we're not talking about, $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, right? Maybe even $1 million. We found that it worked, but the transaction cycle was long. And typically we would work with somebody for 6 months. So they may not actually close their first deal until, 2-3 months into the program. And we've just found that when other people in our program are closing people daily, that they're like, oh, I'll close another one. The person that's maybe not closing for 2 to 3 months is like, dude, I'm not getting any results. I don't get it. Right. Yet they're getting leads. It's just a longer period. And it's not that we couldn't help them. They actually did great. It was just a longer cycle. I've hooked up with, several coaches. We had a guy come in that sells custom clothing, custom suits.
Vaughn.
Yeah, Vaughn, and this guy's like, and within 45 days did $100,000 in revenue. In new revenue, he wasn't using social media. He had kind of tried to do it, never put it all together. And we first thing we started with, dude, what's your offer? Hey, my offer is kind of piecing together clothing to where it's $2,500. I said, dude, that's not what people want. People want an experience. They want confidence. They want all these things from your clothing. So why don't we just say, hey, in order for you to get kind of a total makeover, total transformation, it's $7,000. Okay. We don't have to piece together all these things. So we changed the whole guy's wardrobe. All of a sudden they come in like, dude, I want exactly that. Right. And all of a sudden they got a whole new wardrobe. So his average ticket goes from 25 to 7,000, soon to be 10,000. All of a sudden now, for every one person he's selling, it's like selling 3 people the old way.
Dude, that's phenomenal. That's the way that you start scaling your business for sure. So, but dude, this training has been amazing. I was not expecting you to deep dive into so much of these golden nuggets, Jesse, but I really do appreciate your time today. And guys, I would invite you to watch this again. And before we go anywhere, Jesse, if you just want to tell people how they could connect with you, maybe there's somebody who's interested in connecting with you or whatnot, how they can follow you, just kind of lay it out there for them.
Yeah, I got Tyler asking a question. He's like, hey, is this only for coaching businesses or online programs? For example, my fanatical farmers market, I sell physical products. Okay, so here's what I'll tell you. Most of the stuff we work with is higher ticket business models. So average transaction, very low end is 1,000. We usually try to bump people up to a minimum 1,500 to 2,000, up to 25,000. Some of our clients per transaction. What we teach works, but the investment of working with us, may not pencil out if you have a lower ticket offer, but everything that we teach will help you if you want more of a subscription model business, which say, hey, if I have a subscription of $400 or $500 a month, somebody stays on for 6 months. Now that is a $2,400 to $3,000 offer, right? We just divide the payments up. It would pencil out that way, but if we keep it low ticket, it doesn't. So yes, it definitely will work. You just have to change your business model up a little bit and charge a higher ticket, which we can definitely help you with. But again, if you have questions on this, just just type in organic in the comments. I'll reach out to you. We can at least have a conversation and see if it's a fit. If it's not, like, cool. Like, I'll give you some things you can do in the meantime. And again, you can watch this and get a lot of information from it.
I love it. And thank you for the questions. We'll hang out here maybe for 2 more minutes. If you guys have any more questions that you would like to pop in for Jesse. But dude, this has been great. I truly appreciate the wealth of knowledge that you have just dropped. You dropped a lot of bombs here, man, and just a different way of looking at Facebook and a different way of looking at your content as a whole. And I'll just do a quick recap. If anybody wants to ask a question here, but be where your ideal client is, guys, and truly get to know your client, who it is that you're serving, and a lot of times your client is you. Just look in the mirror. And a lot of times your client is just a direct reflection of who you were just a few months or a few years ago, and just start talking to that individual that you wish would come alongside of you a couple years ago to help you out. A lot of times that is your ideal client. Start posting the content, guys. Like, just get comfortable just putting yourself out there, and you will get better at it. It doesn't necessarily have to be video, but if it's video, if it's blog post, like, learn copywriting is what I would say. Jesse mentioned that, the skills are communication and messaging. If you could study copywriting, copywriting will help you with your blog posts. Copywriting will help you with your video scripts and things of that nature. If you can learn that high income skill, it'll really help you out with everything that you're doing with your content, guys. And of course, the engagement. Ask better questions. If you want to be a better coach in the first place, like ask better questions and get used to asking questions. Because if you're going to lead them into DMs or a sales call, like if you're going to connect with your audience, it comes to asking better questions in the first place, guys. And then, of course, let's sell them into DMs. Like, let's connect with them through our communication and our messaging. And I would say that the better that you are communicating on your public platform, the more that they are already connected to you, the more they're already connected to your message, the more that they know, like, and trust you, the easier it's going to be to sell them because they're already bought into you and your program. And now they just want to know, how do I get involved with you in your program because I need this help. So
let me say this, man. Your job is not to sell people on social media. Your job is to find out what they want.
That's so good. Okay.
Because if you know what they want, it's much easier to sell them than if you don't know what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't know what someone wants, it's going to be impossible to sell them on anything other than not working with you.
Amen. That's a golden nugget right there.
I think I might have to go post that today.
100%. 100%. Well, Jesse, thank you again so much for this opportunity. This has been a true blessing.
Let me say this. So, like, you asked me to do this, but I do want to say something because I think it's important. Is like the guy that I knew that was Sean Murphy like 2-3 years ago is not the same guy today. So I just want to say, man, I'm super proud of you, the work you're doing, and then also the passion behind it. And dude, anytime you ask me to do anything with you, I'm 100% in. So dude, I appreciate it.
Dude, thank you so much. And I appreciate that recognition too, because yeah, when I came to Jesse a few years ago, guys, I was a complete mess. And maybe we'll share that story on another live, but yeah, I'm a different man today than I was a couple of years back. That is for sure. So thank you for that, Jesse. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you guys so much, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Right. God bless you guys. Thank you.
All right, you too.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.